Expanding Horizons, MSMEs in the Global Export Market. I would like to invite the moderator for the panel discussion, Mr. Sandeep Naolekar, Managing Director, Darling Pumps Private Limited. The panelists, Mr. Sunil Desai, Managing Director, Richfield Engineering India Private Limited. Mr. Vishal Vithal Kamat, Vice Chairman, CII Maharashtra State Council and Executive Director, Kamat Hotels India Limited. Mr. Sunil Dave, Managing Director, BC Instruments India Private Limited. And Mr. Amit Ghaisas, Director, YashPrabha Group. Over to you, Mr. Naolekar.
Well, good afternoon, everyone. It's almost afternoon now. And after a very, very invigorating session earlier, so now this is a session on exports. I think it's a very important aspect for any business to grow. I think if we have to accelerate very fast, exports is the only way. I think we have, be it China, be it Japan, be it Germany, or be it any other country, they have grown because they're focused on the international markets. Well, India has a big market by itself, but then if we have to grow within a limited time frame, I think we have to seriously look into exports. And MSME plays a significant role in exports. Though the share has come down to some 43% this year, we had reached around 50%. And there's an aspiration to have a share of 60% by 2030. I think we are planning to have a 2 trillion export economy, and the MSME share should be around 60%. Though all said and done, MSMEs typically face a lot of challenge in exporting. I believe most of the challenges are because of their lack of knowledge. They don't understand, and they try to do the business in the same manner as they are doing domestically. In exports, you're going to diverse countries, diverse cultures. There are many regulations to follow. So a very different kind of an approach is needed for doing a successful export business, for building it up. I have a personal experience. We've been struggling with exports, but the moment we started taking advice and we were doing all the things right, but somewhere that X factor was missing. So I think MSME should learn about that X factor. And I think today we have very eminent panelists with us. We'll be discussing and touching upon some of the factor with the time constraint that we have. So on my right, let me have a pleasure of introduction to the esteemed panelists. Mr. Sunil Desai is on my right. He's the Managing Director of Richfield Engineering India Private Limited. They are into design, fabrication, and installation of plants and machinery. And he has been involved in these activities throughout the world in different kind of culture. And he has also lived in a number of countries. So I think he has a very good knowledge of how different countries operate as far as business is concerned, and we'll soon come to know about it. To my left is Vishal, Vithal, Kamat. We all know about Kamat chain of hotels. I mean, we all travel on the way. We find number of Kamat hotels, and where we must have stepped in and eaten. Vishal is the Executive Director of Kamat Hotels India India Limited. They have a distinction of if you are landing in Mumbai T1 airport, I think you cannot miss Orchid. I mean, it is the first 5-star hotel, eco 5-star hotel. So congratulations for that. I think we are all talking of ESG today. To my extreme left is Mr. Sunil Dave, MD of BC Instrumentation India Private Limited. They have a distinction of, I think you started the first concept of industrial cleaning and 25 years ago. And he has a wide experience in aerospace, defense, and medical industry. And they have a distinction of supplying to Boeing 787 Dreamliner, the instrumentation parts, and for which they were certified for the first time in India with AS 9100, which is essential for any aviation industry. Congratulations, sir. So he is also a lot of, he speaks on as guest lecturers in UK and India. To my extreme right is Mr. Amit Ghaisas. He's the director of YashPrabha group of industries. They are basically into coating, painting technologies and into instrumentations, electronics and control systems. So they are exporting to, I believe, 32 countries and have a vast experience and of exporting So, welcome everyone to this panel. So my first question is to every one of you, that can you briefly tell in a couple of minutes, just a couple of minutes, about your journey of exports, especially in terms of exports, a little bit about your company and how the journey started, what was the motivating factor that the journey started. So I'll start with you, Sunil ji.
Yeah, thank you very much, Sandeep ji, for that introduction. Thank you very much, CII, for having me here all the way from Gujarat. My name is Sunil Dave. I think you heard a lot of Sunil today, Sunil Munjal ji, Sunil Desai ji, but I am not, experienced and as established as them. My name is Sunil Dave. I am a first generation entrepreneur from Gujarat. I am a serial entrepreneur, always dreamt to be an entrepreneur. And of course, when you are dreaming, you tend to dream that, okay, why can't you, be an exporter as well? So ever since I graduated as an engineer, I did my first course at a small institute called EDI, Entrepreneurship Development of India, and then learned something, and then went on to do my MBA in the UK. Yes, I did the business which was domestic, but there was an opportunity that came that we had to export something to the UK. I took that opportunity, went out and met those gentlemen, but unfortunately the business failed. So what I'm trying to tell you here is that failure taught me what I am today. But that didn't stop me, and I went on to do another business which was also focused only on exports. And that, brought us to the aerospace business. Just as I say, I'll keep it very brief. The first orders that we got were from a company called Honeywell, of course a very big name, but the parts that they wanted to give away were the parts that were going to be discontinued. And nobody in the US wanted to touch them because of such low volume. So that's what we picked up. And that is how, we started, and we'll talk more if time permits. But ever since, this is 19 years ago. Thank you, Sandeep.
Thank you, Sandeep ji, for the introduction. I'm part of the Kamat family. We have been in the business from 4 generations. From the export perspective, we have 2 parts being in hospitality. One is what business we bring to India is also considered export within this ecosystem of this thing. And secondly is what we have done when we have gone abroad, earning forex and bringing that back. We have already, my father opened hotels in restaurants rather, called the Namaskar chain in Japan. He opened restaurants in Singapore, Dubai, in America. I myself worked and opened multiple restaurants in America. And we also used to, we also do still consult. We've consulted in South Africa. We were operating hotels in Mongolia, in Ulaanbaatar. So we've basically taken our services out of India, because that's basically one of the beauties of export, is that it's not limited to physical, it's also today your intellectual capacity which you can take out. And I further will share some of those manufacturing people who have taken their services, the soft services out, even though they are an exporter. We'll touch upon that. So with that, as I said, it's your perspective, what you take as an opportunity, and it's not necessarily limited to your physical ability. Thank you.
Thank you, Vishal. Sunil ji, would you?
Good afternoon, everybody. I come from a Gujarati family, as you know, from Sunil Desai. But my perspective has been more on the global front, because I started my career with multinationals and tread along in the US, in Europe, in UK, and in Africa. I've lived almost 25 years out of my life out of this country. But there's one thing which you should always remember, that you can make an Indian hold an American or British passport, but you cannot take an Indian out of an Indian. An Indian will always remain an Indian, no matter where he goes, whatever he does, and whatever congregation of people he lives with. I met people in Europe who are in Sweden for 3rd generation. They're still Indian. So when you look at the export market where I have touched across the globe, I found 2 things which are very elementary. I was working for an organization. As you know, the Richfield Engineering is basically a process plant equipment manufacturing company. We are into material handling and environmental solutions. We have a group of about 7, 8 companies across the world where we work together, severally and individually. Export is something which is been ingrained into Gujaratis. And since I was working for a multinational company, the choice was to source equipment, services from India. And that is what my journey started with, to look for services, supply, equipment, manpower, everything for companies where I used to work for, take it from India and export and show the name elsewhere. That brought my company to India. We got a very large contract for a project, and that contract wanted engineering services. We were getting it from Europe, but the price difference was almost, we're paying 100, there we were paying 500. So the verbal choice was, let's go to India. And that's where the first thing started. And today that thing is not out of it. During COVID, we were 100% export in both this thing. This year also, we are targeting only 100%. And we would say, God willing, we would like to keep that thing going. It may not be 100% we are delivering ourselves. We work in a hub and a spoke arrangement. The hub and spoke arrangement for the MSME is absolutely essential. You cannot build a BHEL or an NTPC into your organization. The client always looks for everything is under your roof. You cannot have everything under your roof. So you have to be very clear when you're doing an export. You have to be very specific with the client and tell him what you can deliver and what your expertise is. It's not necessary the client is looking for. None of the European or the American companies, except for the few majors, have everything built themselves. Boeing does not manufacture all the parts themselves. Sunil Dave can tell absolutely. So the MSME has to take that same culture of bringing the export forward, and market manifestation becomes an integral part of it to understand the export market. I think so, if time permits, I can elaborate more. I have a lot of notes which I made through. And if there are any questions, we can also offline discuss that. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Sunil ji. Amit, briefly.
Good afternoon, everyone. I'm Amit Ghaisas. I'm a second-generation entrepreneur based out of Pune. The introduction said that we are into painting technologies, but basically we manufacture the application technologies for powder as well as liquid painting, complete customized paint shops. The material handling required, again, focus mainly on paint shops, but material handling, overhead chain conveyors, and automated storages. And in electronics, we are into supply side monitoring and controlling relays and microprocessor-based alarm annunciators. It's a 60-year-old group now, started by my father. But the export itself is, we are into exports since 1980. So started with just an idea that we wanted to have exports in any case. I mean, that was kind of to prove that our patents, we have 19 patents for different products that we manufacture. And all our products being in capital equipment, we were trying to prove ourselves across the globe. So that was the only motivating factor to get into exports. Started with Thailand. Now we export to 32 countries from Mexico to Australia. So practically some parts of Southern Europe as well. And the main issue for us, or the main the contributor for us for exports is our paint shop projects. So we are also into services wherever we put up our projects.
Thank you, Amit. Talking about success factor, Sunil ji, there's a lot of importance for culture. I mean, people talk about skills and the other things, but how much is culture an important success factor for doing an export business?
I think it's very important, because the way I have learned, I'll stick to what I have done in my journey of the last 19 years, and limiting myself to a very small company that I run. The idea was that, of course, I had a domestic business at that time, but when this opportunity came, the first thing we thought of together with our customer was that we drew a demarcation line between the domestic operations and the Indian operations. That was the easiest part. The hard part we took was create a separate company altogether. So we hired new employees, we hired new chartered accountants, we hired everybody who was not related to my current genetic disposition. The reason was not because they were not up to the mark or they did not have that experience, but the reason was that even if there were fewer orders, few $1,000s order worth in the first year, but we just wanted to create an impression that we are there for you 24/7. The other reason was the time zone. You know, like Desai will tell you, as he has worked in many countries, that time zone is again a very big thing here. Like we work in the late evenings with US or very early mornings with Singapore or Far Eastern countries. Second, even if you pick somebody from the street, literally, it's better to hire them and train them to the requirements of the company and to train them to the requirements of the customer, rather than pick up somebody who has more knowledge. So that is the culture that I am talking of. Other culture that we brought in was that we made the whole company, even when it was 1,500 square feet, very visual because of the language barrier. The customers obviously speak in English like we do here right now, but you know, beyond you in a small scale unit, I think 80% of would be very comfortable in their vernacular. I mean, even, you know, translating an email would be very difficult. So we are just and we have kept on developing that. The other thing was, you create a culture where you give one person enough confidence that yes, he or she can talk to the customer late at night and, you know, be able to, you should be, but you have to be behind them. You know, let them talk, but you stay off screen, like, I mean, in a modern era. But in those days, you know, on the conference call, you stay on the table, but allow them. I mean, in a MSME, like if many of you are, you know that we all wear multiple hats. Like the QA manager is most likely to be a production supervisor as well for first 2-3 years, isn't it? And when a person comes in from North America, he's going to ask, where is your QA manager? And then the challenges start. So even your inspector, you have to call him or her a QA manager. Beyond that, there are many examples. What we did was, we realized, Sandeepji, that we are not their first choice. Like in many of the products that we export, we are not the first choice. We maybe are the second or the third choice. So we created a vision jointly with the stakeholders, that how can we be a supplier of choice? Like you want to pick up a pen, you have 4 supermarkets to go to. Likewise, why would they come to BC Instruments? So we are not selling a product, we are selling a package. And the package is the experience. So there are so many other things that we will, as I go along, we will talk if it comes up. But I think a culture is an exporting culture. Culture is that we understand the customers better, the countries better, and so on.
Thank you, Sunilji. Since the international market is an expensive affair, and I think we just cannot do it in the manner that we do the domestic market, where you go, the expense is not so much, you keep on doing trials and errors. I think you must have a specific strategy to get into the international market. And you need to have that adaptability also while you go there, while all the strategy may not work. But you should have the adaptability and to attack the different markets in a different way as the things come along. What is your take? I would like to ask you, Amitji, and then Sunilji, you can fill it up. Yeah, thank you.
The first thing I would say is that, just to continue with what Sunilji said, the culture for exports primarily is believing in what you're doing. So all our Western buyers would want you to be confident about what you're doing, not stumble upon, not being able to actually explain what you're doing. So that is one thing that we started off with. And the strategy also comes from the same thing. So when we started exporting, we first created an impact or an image that we are not trying to export to these countries where we are a low-cost alternative to your European or American competitors or our European American competitors. So we give the same quality, or at least almost at par quality. Yes, there is a price advantage, but we are a very innovative nation and we can actually do a lot of frugal innovation. So that's why we can give the same product or the same service, but at a comparatively lesser cost. So I would put it, we are not cheaper than them, we are more economical is what we try to project. So our strategy always has been that we are not a China. We are not going to give you a cheaper product. We are going to give you a product which is at par with our global competitors, but you get an advantage because of our frugal engineering expertise. So that was one of our strategies that we took with. The other small issue that I would like to point out here was way back, before India became something which it is today, where everybody accepts that we can deliver good products, we had created a mailer which we used to call it India Mailer. So before marketing yourself, your products or your company, we used to actually market India. So we used to market whatever innovations or whatever technologies, whatever, let's say, achievements that India has done in different fields, not necessarily our field. So that kind of was the starting point of any conversation, any kind of interaction with the customers, and then take it from there to the product. So we sold India as a technology hub, or let's say an innovation hub, and then we brought it to us and said that this is where we come from, so we can do it better. So that was our second strategy that we tried on.
Yeah, it's very important. I think before when you go out, I think before your company, you are an Indian. So they looked at the country first, and then they look at your company. If the country doesn't have a good image, then even though your company may be great, so it's very difficult to get into. Sunilji, please.
I agree with Sandeepji on this particular part, that the trust deficit. Let us agree on one thing ourselves. This 5 alphabet word is missing in India also. we as entrepreneurs have a trust deficit. First, it starts from the family. It starts from the days of Ramayana. Why I say Ramayana? Because if that lady would have not poisoned the ear, Lord Rama would have not gone for 14 years. Coming back to doubt, it happened in Mahabharata. And today also in our common life, I mean, look at my wife, she'll say, why are you going to Mumbai? When are you coming back? Question. So we have this particular one, which is a trust deficit, which is not actually a trust deficit, but it's a doubt. So I think so when we are going to the foreign world, I have lived outside, so I know, we should erase that particular portion that they have a doubt of us. Our confidence level is more stronger than some of the countries who travel across the globe to market their wares. They grow in a group of 10. An Indian entrepreneur grows 1. They go 10, expending $1,000 a day, so that's $10,000 a day. An Indian will go spend $100 and come back with $1,000. So that's the difference. It's a confidence level which we need to imbibe in ourselves to capture the market. It's a confidence level and you will be able to convince the customer that he should come to India to buy his product, not just think about it. We are dealing right now with South America. I have not even met my customer. I'm talking about today, not today. I'm talking about 1994, when I used to live in Africa. We had the time of telex. Facsimile was just coming around. At that time, I have done a complete sugar factory project, sitting in Kenya, doing in Uganda, everything through telex. I have not even met the customer. Today, that old man who was the project manager, if he's coming and sitting here, I will not even know his name. So you should have that kind of confidence level in yourself to go and tell the customer that you can deliver. Modern technology has given us that we can talk to them at 2 o'clock in the morning, which I do. So you have to burn the midnight oil, wake up early, burn 22 hours, like our Prime Minister, and then probably we'll be able to reach 10 trillion faster than what we are dreaming of. So it's the question of our self-confidence, number one. Number two is quality, which is inherent, and it has to come without any concession. Number three is our price level. Good for the engineering industry that there is a news which just I read that probably the steel prices are going to go down. So it's like a bonus. So we have to also understand that where are our pitfalls. And skill level, it's a question which is always going to be there, because poaching of skill is also a part of the journey which we have to learn, because we still have got to fathom what the West world is doing. So we need to innovate every time a manufacturing technique, be it pharmaceutical or be it anything. So summing up, I think so we need to be conscious about what we are able to deliver, and the most important is confidence.
Thank you, Sunilji. I think trust is a very, very important factor. Thinking of product as a service. I think actually product, we don't sell product, we sell it as a service. And I believe you can do innovation at product to a limit. But service, you can be really creative and innovative. And nothing better to learn from a hospitality industry. We can learn a few tips from you, Vishal, so that we can adapt it in our business.
So to give a perspective from the export side, like I mentioned, that whatever forex we earn for the nation is an export income. So in 1997, when my father, Dr. Vithal Kamat, started the Orchid Hotel as Asia's first 5-star environmentally sensitive hotel, it was quite revolutionary in firstly acceptance. What is so great about and what is this environmentally sensitive which we take? Today it has become a norm, and I'm sure all of you all, whoever are in the export and whoever will be in export, will experience this major problem. What is this major problem? When you go abroad, the social conscious index is much higher. They want to give their job or they want to associate with their partner or their vendor in another nation with their environmentally sensitive standards and norms, whether it is STP, whether it is whatever. So what happened when we went abroad, And we said that we are an Ecotel hotel, we are a certified hotel, we have ISO 14001. What happened is this first gave you an entry point into the travel agents, into the corporates. A lot of, that time in 1997, without the internet age being there. By the way, when Air Force One came to India, first time with Bill Clinton, that time they stayed in Orchid because being next to the airport, like you said. Now, why did they choose? While Bill Clinton stayed in the Taj, Air Force One was always, the entire crew stayed with us. Same thing happened when Mr. Obama also came, various people stayed. Now, why is this association still there from Clinton to Obama? The reason being because of ethos, our environmental commitment, consistency, and because we fit into their expectations, it became very easy. We were earning, especially in 1997, in that era, we were earning 30 to 40 crore from our international business. So you must innovate in product, innovation in service is very important, keeping your target audience in mind. And I totally agree with Desai, sir. There has to be firstly self-confidence and trust. The biggest problem in our society as a whole is the chalta hai attitude. It doesn't work. Today, thanks to Government of India and thanks to ISRO, we have got a great opportunity to show the precision that we can work with. It is not a joke what has happened. And the various other companies, MSMEs and various others, right from a screw nut bolt. Not everything is made, sir, by a Fortune 500 company. Even the nut bolt which is holding up the Chandrayaan is from an MSME only. Na? It's an average product with high precision. So I think the time has come for us to keep in mind what is the gap in the market, how we can tap it. And after that, not having this chalta hai or callous attitude. I'd just like to give a small anecdote and end. You know, the difference between why Japan, especially once upon a time until today also, is a global export powerhouse. An American company gave an order to a Japanese company, and like in every export order, I'm assuming, because I don't export products, but as I read, it said that defective is allowed for every 100, 3 piece. For every 100, there's 3 piece. 3% is allowed, defective piece is okay. So when the order finally came, they found that, arey, ye 1000 के साथ ये 30 और क्या भेजा है उन्होंने. And Japanese people especially are not very proficient in English, and this is a very old story. So what happened was they were dumbfounded. So when they spoke to the Japanese counterpart, they said, yes, for every 100 piece you want 3 defective pieces, so we have sent you. See the confidence level कि अगर Japanese आदमी ने अगर 100 पीस भी भेजा है तो वो 100 पीस परफेक्ट है, मगर ऑर्डर में वो 3% डिफेक्टिव करके उसने सेपरेट पैक किया because of a miscommunication. Because they didn't understand that they were allowed 100 में 3, but that is not their ethos. Their ethos is आपने 100 मांगा है, मैं 100 परफेक्ट आपको दूंगा. That ethos is required right from the grassroots today in everything we do. That will make the game changer. That's when from an M you will become an S, from an S to an M, and then ultimately to an L company. Thank you.
Can I add something here, please? I'll just add to what which Mr. Kamat said about Chandrayaan. The fact is that none of the IIT or IIM are in that project. Number one, you don't need to be graduate from Wharton, Cornell, Illinois Institute of Technology. You can be from MS University. You can be from Vallavidhyanagar. And you can still reach where it was. Sam Pitroda is one of those examples from the past who passed out from Vidyanagar, and see where he was. So it's not necessary that, you know, when we are going for exports and we are saying that we are talking about what Kamat said about it, that it's the question of our ethos. And I take you to the Three Musketeers story, Arthos, Porthos, and so D'Artagnan is the last one. You have to be that. So I think so. We need to change our mental approach on getting the export market, the thrust, and we should become a cluster, what Mr. Munjal mentioned in the morning, that, you know, is the family which is also important, but at the same time, the MSME have to become a family. Then we are able to achieve. And that's what our culture, I mean, we don't have everything under our roof, and we are still exporting. It's pick and choose from where you want, and we manufacture. So it's an innovation which we have done. We have tried to learn this thing, and it creates value. So you're creating a chain. So if that chain you develop, I think so, there's nothing not achievable. We went through a very bad patch, rough patch, completely grounded. From there we came back. Why? Because we had that thing bug into us. You have to have that bee in your bonnet. That's what I say. I'm sorry. It's a wrong concept thing to say, but that's a thing which is absolutely essential, that you have the bee in you and you will be able to achieve.
Sunilji, talking about regulations and compliances, I think each country has their own regulation and compliances. I think they use it as a trade barrier. I think it's a double-edged sword that you can use in your favor. Right. By, I think you can eliminate a lot of your compatriots if you are able to follow that kind of a compliance. Like you got this certification for Boeing. I think that eliminates, not everybody is able to do that. So you become the exclusive supplier over there. So how do you navigate these regulations and compliances? Because each country has it's a very complex thing for an MSME to understand. If the MSME wants to get into a certain country, and number one, it's very difficult to understand what they want. So how do you do that, basically?
I think it's very important, a very important question. It's a huge entry barrier into a business of your passion. What I understand that every country or a group of countries tend to protect their territory by imposing certain certification requirements, certain regulations. For example, in an aerospace or a defense industry, the auditor that you get for your ISO 9000 sometimes travel from abroad. You don't get their dates. During the COVID times, they never came to India for 3 years. So when the certification lapses, you are unable to export from day zero itself. The moment your certificate lapses, I cannot export tomorrow. So the first thing is that you have to determine whether you will be able to take that shock in the worst case scenario. In the good case scenario, then the customer has choice. He can buy from India and he can equally buy from Vietnam, isn't it? Or he can go to Portugal or Mexico to buy that. So it's not a double-edged sword, it's even riskier than that. So to navigate that is, you have to build relationship, you have to build trust, and you have to earn respect of your customer. I do not know the tactical way, but I know that building cultures, building strong bridges, and being for them when they need you is the way you address it. But yes, if you ask me completely on regulations, every country has a different one. You have to learn about that country. So an MSME, let me put again, bring it to Sandeepji's question, MSMEs, do not think too much. Focus on few customers, focus on few handful of countries, focus on friendly products that you think you can service as well afterwards. So, a lot of people in manufacturing like me, Desai sir would tell you more, they forget the cost of service, which is very high, and after sales service. In India, you can call somebody in Pune or Mumbai and say, Jara dekh lena, and we will pay you 10% or 20% as a sales commission or an agent commission. It doesn't happen if you do that when you sell to China. It doesn't happen when you sell to Japan, like we do. So we were talking about pricing. I'll just bring it. You understand the regulation and do markup accordingly. What I have learned is my product, if I want to sell in India, would be slightly economical. When I'm exporting, I have to have that markup which will take care of that product for next 2 or 3 years or its service life. Yeah, thank you.
Yes, please. Yeah.
I totally agree with what Sunilji said, but I come from a totally different perspective here. As I said, we are into capital equipment, so I don't supply to key customers. So I've got 200 customers in Mexico, a few hundred in Southeast Asia, so on and so forth. And each consignment or each invoice value can be as low as $3,000, $3,500, and then it goes up. So for me, the choice was not to restrict to a few customers, but coming back to the pricing point, as I said, that there is a cost to service and there is a cost to the certification as well. Most of the MSME entrepreneurs actually feel that the cost of the certification will be a deterrent to their success. But that's kind of your marketing investment. The point that everybody has been making, if you are confident enough about your product, it is certainly worthwhile to invest in that certification because that opens a lot of doors for you. So across the globe, there must be, the certificate that works in Europe does not work in the US. What works in the US does not necessarily work in the Middle East also. So Middle East also has some countries looking for certification that works in US and some which look for certification which works in Europe. So we have to keep on working around these non-trade barriers, but that cost is certainly worth it because that expands your total market share substantially. And as I said, we have to mark up, but we also should understand that though there is competition from Vietnam, yes, or low-cost manufacturing countries, we still get an edge in our profit margins also when we export to these developed worlds because they compare it with not just our low-cost competition, but also with the regular supplies which come from more costlier options.
Thank you, Amit. Sunilji, your take on, because you have seen the world.
Well, I've not seen so much of the world, but yes, a little bit of it out of my 25 years. Coming to what Mr. Dave has mentioned and what our friend just mentioned, that, serviceability with the client. The export market needs two analysis, basically coming back from what as a manufacturer or as an exporter. One is a microeconomic, analysis of your own organization. Second is the macroeconomic for the product. With that, you have to have your micro-environmental integration, which takes you to two-part, sustainable export, which will lead you to understand two parts of your export, which can carry it forward. Tangible. Go back to what Sunil Dave mentioned about price, that are you able to beat the Vietnam, but not at his price, but at the price at what you want? And what add-on you give? What profit you're going to generate? The profit what you generate from X, you don't get a windfall order. Everybody thinks export is a windfall order. No, it's not a windfall order. My experience goes back from this, that every export order is a breadwinner and a bread earner. It is not a windfall. Organization may have windfall orders consistently going through the years, but in my business, we don't have windfall orders. We are competing against monsters, and we know where the thing works. So every time, the input cost is very important. So that is where I go back to what I stated earlier, the hub and spoke arrangement. You cannot have everything under your roof, so you have to get it done from different people. And everybody shares the booty out of it. The transparency is important. Quality consistency, that is very, very important. And the market forces. I go back to what Sandeep ji mentioned. We are supposed to know the law of the land when you're exporting. If you do not know the regulation, you need to study the regulation of that country and how to overcome that regulation. We are sitting in Gujarat and we are doing in South America. You can understand it takes 58 days for a vessel to reach there. But you still know how to beat that clock. It is a question of looking beyond the boundaries. That is what Gandhiji said, Fari Kha. That's the next market for everybody from India. And that's what the PM also mentioned recently in the B20. And Africa is the next destination, and if we become complacent, we're not hitting 10 trillion. I'm being very candid about this because this is my passion to make this thing work. And when I talk with to the customers across the globe, I stick with the passion and I do not negate the opposition or negate the competition, what you face. They throw you around, the Chinese is selling you at this price. I said, fine, Chinese is selling you at this price. But are you sure that he's going to give you a replacement? Well, I am giving you confidence that I'll replace it, free of charge. This confidence level makes him think, do I have to go to that country to buy the product? Or do I have to go to Vietnam? Or do I have to go to Pakistan? Or do I have to go to South America to buy the product? It's a question of your understanding what you are exporting. That is essential. Getting an order is something which is very important, and knowing the law of the land. If you know the law of the land, you will be able to get the business easily, without any encumbrances, without any problems. And that's what my experience says. I'm not an expert in exports, but this is what I have come around to understand, that how we can make this thing go forward.
Thank you, Sunil ji. One last question to all of you, and then we'll open for questions to the audience. Well, we are looking at the global scenario. We've been hearing about the stories that there is a recession happening in Europe and Americas and the Western world as such, where a lot of India export a lot to them. And I've been hearing from my friends that they have seeing a quite slowdown over there. So under this scenario, there's a question naturally which comes to the mind, that what is the future for Indian companies and how they can navigate through these times and how they can make the most out of it. आपदा में अपॉर्चुनिटी कैसे ढूंढे हम basically?
There is certainly a kind of a slowdown in some parts of the world. I always believe that our price advantage gives us that edge when there is a slowdown, because then we start becoming more attractive to those markets also, which initially didn't really think about us, because they probably thought that we are going to, along with the lower cost, we are going to deliver lower quality. So that is one edge that we certainly get when such kind of slowdowns are seen. And the other issue that I always believe is, it's not like we are going to take up 35% market share in that market. So you are anyway competing for say 5%, 2%, 1% of that market. That market is always, no slowdown means a closed economy. So you still have that market. The efforts to result might change a bit, but the market does not close down.
To say, Sunil?
I am slightly optimistic, because when there was a big recession in the late 90s, we were manufacturing equipment from Africa and selling in Europe and US. I was not in India. We have a very large manufacturing facility down in Africa, and we never gave it up. The same thing goes with me right now also. The world is facing recession. That's fine, but the thing is not going to stop. People are not going to stop living because there is a recession. Projects are still going on. Everybody of you sit down, and if you want, I can send you the links of the magazines which come around into the construction industry, into the petroleum industry, into the manufacturing industry. Sit down and say that, find out, every day you will find a news that there is so many $1 billion investment is going on in Middle East, so many $1 billion investment going in South America. Recently, Tanzania has signed the railway contract with China, Uganda to Tanzania railway line. The refinery of Angola has gone to Chinese. What are we doing? So if they say that there is recession, I don't believe. For me, I have never believed that the world is going to stop. It's a question of that bug into yourself that no, it has to be done. And we have to wake up every day morning and saying this has to be done. And it can be done. Because if Saudi Arabia is signing a contract, I'll give you one example. We have Auda, who is a renewable energy company. They have signed a contract recently with the Saudis. They're going to set up renewable energy power plants in Saudi Arabia. So where is the recession? I agree with what Sandeep ji is saying, that there is a recession and people say that they don't want to buy. But that is complacency. We do not, because we have been dealing with the same customer. We go and eat only Haldiram, but we don't want to eat Ghasita Ram. That's the question. So we have to change that we'll eat the Indian Vada Pav instead of going to Burger King. That's the difference.
Great words of encouragement, Vishal.
See, every calamity is an opportunity. Just because some country consumer confidence is low doesn't necessarily mean that their manufacturing, let's take the case of Germany today. We keep reading reports about German slowdown in their economy and factories and all shutting down. Now, generally what happens in a recession, the first person to actually get hit is the MSME. And in their industry, if the wage bills have gone up due to various reasons, if power has shot up due to various reasons, that actually is a bigger opportunity for our MSME to replace those MSMEs. Secondly, as rightly said, but not exactly in the Burger King and Vada Pav context, but don't put all your eggs in one basket. If you are dependent on only Europe, then it's high time that you see how you can cater to another set of audience. The biggest challenge today is so a great entrepreneur is one who also keeps a foresight. And today there is no more a cycle. Every 7 years they used to say this is the cycle, that is cycle. Now that cycle has become every 6 months to 1 year. So you have to constantly scan. A lot of us don't take the advantage of the various government schemes and platforms that are there. Like today CII is one very minuscule small platform when you consider the various other opportunities that are there from Government of India, state governments. Why don't we participate in these exhibitions? As said by sir, we think, अरे खर्चा होएगा, देखो लक्ष्मी खर्चा करोगे तो लक्ष्मी आएगी. So we at times as entrepreneurs don't do what is required to put up. You go to China and you see these exhibitions and the kind of various stalls, 50 stalls of the same product. You get bored, fed up. And that's why those exhibitions are so big. You have to go with walking shoes and literally that's trolley wheel wala, because itna sara rehta hai, seekhne ko, dene ko. And that is basically where we lose out. We don't participate and then we say, "Arey, kaisa hoga?" No, you have to go. If you don't leave your home, you cannot prosper. And that is one of the main takings of here. If there's a recession, all the more go and participate in those global exhibitions. Go to Berlin, go to America, go to Southeast Asia, go to these locations, and definitely you will be rewarded for your efforts. Sitting at home and saying, "Haya daya, arey, udhar recession hai." Arey, but idhar nahi hai na. So if you're doing well on your domestic front, use that money to bolster, because ek na ek din uska recession to turn hoga. It's not a permanent thing. 3 years it will last, 5 years it will last. Their government will also actively work to remove from recession. So as sir has rightly said, it is what chashma you see the world with, based on which you will be of self-fulfilling prophecy. If you are optimistic like sir, you will see no recession. Thank you.
Thank you, Vishal.
Yeah, I agree to, a lot of things our panelists are saying, and, this is all experience, as I can see. In my experience, I have seen 3 worst times. Once, in fact, I lost my business. That was in 1998, when my nearest competitor was from Indonesia, and the rupiah depreciated so much that Indian rupee was no longer attractive, the price so we had to shut that export business. Second was 2008, when Lehman Brothers crashed. And the gentleman, if you remember, the TV screens flew in his business jet onto, the president's office, and business jets were no longer sold because he was coming, actually being a banker, and flew. He should have empathized with everybody. And we were doing a project for business jets, and it just never took off for so many years. And as recently as COVID, when none of us flew, isn't it? So, but we are learning every time. Kamat ji said, don't put eggs in one basket. Yes, you make a product that, can you offer it to somebody else, or a similar product, just fine tune it to fit into another industry. After 2008, we entered into medical life sciences, so which is high precision, deals with life. You need it, and especially when the chips are down. So when aerospace was not working, we had the medical sciences backing up. But my bigger concern is, can you read into it? Recession to aayega. Yeah, you can say geopolitical, Ukraine, Russia, it might have affected your input steel prices in a big way, or many other prices. But what I have from my past 35 years of experience is, every 10, 12 years, expect something. Don't sit on your laurels. Don't think your brand name works. The other thing that people forget to read, which is worse than recession, is when your customers, buyers, or their purchase managers, in our languages, change, they actually forget you. You have to go and restart all over again, because when you are late, they get an opportunity to switch. So you may be shipping on time, but there are issues. Being an Indian, I know there are a lot of issues that we face. So watch out for things recession-like, not recession itself. But I think there are a lot more elements that where you can go wrong, or when when the customers might change. So again, it's all about building bridges, building relationships, and how you can support them during their bad times. Like, a lot of Indians do not know that September 30th is their year end for most of the companies outside India. And in September, in August, we start with the festival season, Raksha Bandhan, Janmashtami, Ganesh, and we actually forget about our customers. And as I sit in the morning, I'm reading so many emails from my customer that you are going to ruin our quarter if you don't deliver on time. And these are the problems I think we should be thinking more, along with, of course, the original question. Thank you.
Thank you, Sunilji. Thank you, everyone. Now we'll take a few questions because we are running out of time. So, may I request anybody?
Good afternoon, I'm Dr. Wilfred Monteiro, Independent Director and Management Consultant. See, one thing which was mentioned, that China is an exporter of low-cost goods, no longer so. At one time we used to say Japani Malay. They are definitely today superior quality. One example you give. Now how do we go and improve the brand image of India as a whole, that India is not only a cheap labor market, but a high efficiency and high quality market? I think there is a big concerted effort needed at more than the outside the government level. Thank you.
Can I take this, Sandeep ji? Because I was the one who said it, so I'll just take this answer. I didn't say that China produces low quality products. It doesn't. But there are two different leagues of Chinese products coming into the global market. One is almost, or you can even say at par with European American quality, but then that is not necessarily a cheaper product. It is probably a little lesser than what the European counterpart would be. But then there is a substantial amount of Chinese products coming into the market, primarily B2C markets mainly, where you have low quality products coming in also. So our customers usually tend to evaluate us with those cheaper Chinese instead of trying to evaluate us or compare us with the good quality Chinese products. That is what, when I said that we don't want to say that we are a China. But at the same time, I totally agree with you in saying that it's not just this the product that counts, it's the total image of the country. What Vishal ji said, that chalta hai is something that has been associated with us, even in our own evaluation of our teams, our products, our suppliers. And that is something that is now, I would say, changing at a much faster pace. We are not there yet, but it's changing a lot, even in the MSMEs, where people are more aware about what we need to do to achieve what we want to achieve. So the chalta hai is going back. If we once put a stop to it, and people like us put a stop to it in our own organizations and our supply chains, that's how we'll actually give a lot of contribution to the changing of image of India as a chalta hai culture.
Sorry, I'll just take one more question because I think the Honorable Minister is here, so he would be arriving any time. So who would I have the gentleman in white?
Good morning. And I think we covered most of the topics. One of the topics we did not cover was related to export-import compliance in the country from where you are doing the exports. Recently, you must have read an article in Economic Times where Indian exporters are facing big problems in restrictions related to closure of shipping bills, and there are several companies have been put on the alert for export compliances. In India, still all the exporters have tons of document to be uploaded on the site for closures and other things, which are big hurdles, which are not in other countries for the exporters, which is a big kind of a hurdle for a new exporters or a small exporter or the new entrepreneur who wants to start the exports, because he has, at the end of the day, compliance related to shipping bill closures. A shipping bill may be opened due to the bank charges for $20 and $15, and shipping bill may be opened due to some short payment receipt from the customer. But these are the kind of problems, hurdles which customers are facing. Exporters are facing.
Yes, Sunilji.
I agree with you on that particular point that you have a deterrent as far as the documentation part is concerned. We as an exporter, we forgot that between April and June you need to revalidate your IEC. We got our IEC deactivated. It took me 4 hours to get it activated back again. It's a question of compliance. If we understand the law of the land, which I said earlier, we don't talk about the law of the land of the buyer, but the law of the land of our country. And I think so we can solve this problem. We can discuss this offline because we are short on time.
I'm very sorry that I have to conclude this because the Honorable Minister is here already. So thank you very much. I'm sure that a lot of MSMEs might have got motivated to get into exports, and our panelists are available on the sidelines. You can discuss with them any questions that you have. Thank you very much, everyone, for patient hearing. Thank you.
Requesting Mr. Sandeep Naolekar to please felicitate the panelists. Request Mr. Vishal Kamat to please present the memento to Mr. Sandeep Naolekar. We will now have a quick changeover before we join for the next session.